Welcome to the Broken System Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Parmer. Together, we'll explore the complex problems people face in our flawed justice systems. Join me as I share the stories of those marginalized by circumstances beyond their control, often made worse by the political environment in their area. We'll discuss issues like drugs, prostitution, financial struggles, and socioeconomic issues while diving deep into the lives affected by these challenges. In each episode, I'll uncover the hidden stories, exploring the human experiences and emotions of those fighting against an unfair system. With empathy and insight, I'll discuss the systematic forces at play, personal battles, and the resilience that emerges. Through interviews, research, and storytelling, the Broken System Podcast aims to help you understand these issues better. By giving a voice to those often unheard, I hope to start the conversations that lead to a positive change and a collective effort to fix the system that has left many behind. Join me on a journey of discovery, empathy, and empowerment as we explore those stories that challenge our views and inspire us to work towards a fairer society. Welcome to the Broken System Podcast. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Broken System Podcast or its host. We encourage listeners to form their own opinion and conduct their own research. Additionally, this podcast may contain content and language that is not suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
It's been 3 days since Amber Spradlin's body was found in a home in Martin, Kentucky, and it's still unclear what led to her death. But what we do know is this community is standing right beside the family, seeking justice for their loved one and offering their support.
Amber Spradlin's family wants answers. Kentucky State Police are investigating, and at this point, no one has been charged with anything related to Spradlin's death.
Spradlin, who was 39 years old, was found dead in a home off of Arkansas Creek Road in Martin on Sunday. Kentucky State Police have said they believe this was no accident, but that's all that's been released so far.
The cause of death for 38-year-old Amber Spradlin was released Thursday, June 29th at a press conference held by her family. Spradlin was stabbed in the head, neck, and face at least 11 times, leading to her death on June 18th at the home of local dentist Michael McKinney.
Of justice are making sure that a woman who was murdered last summer is not forgotten.
Ever since Amber Spradlin was found murdered in a home in Martin, Kentucky last June, thousands have come together to push for answers.
Tuesday will mark 1 month since Floyd County woman Amber Spradlin was killed at a home in the Martin community.
The Prestonburg woman was murdered in June, leaving her friends, family, cats, and community waiting for justice 6 months later.
A murder 6 months ago with no arrest made.
Today, 10 months after Spradlin's murder,
almost 1 year after she was found at a home in Martin, Kentucky.
A year after a Prestonburg woman was found murdered, community members are continuing to keep the fight for justice alive.
As of Tuesday night, Kentucky State Police still hasn't released any new updates and no arrests have been made.
Welcome to the Broken System Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Parmer. Season 3, we're going to dive into the story of Amber Spradlin. Amber was murdered on June 18, 2023, in Prestonburg, Kentucky. As of today, no one has been charged with the crime. This season is about telling Amber's story, keeping her name in the public's eye, and letting everybody know who Amber was. Amber's voice deserves to be heard. Her family's voice deserves to be heard. The people that committed this crime deserve to go to jail. The people that covered up this crime deserve to go to jail. As we've researched and dove into this case, we've seen many things that aren't good. We've seen a 911 system that was torn apart and put back together in the wrong way. We've seen political issues affecting not only the crime scene, but the town. We've seen privilege and wealth in a small town affect not only the investigation, but how things are ran in the town, plus how things are going now. This same power and wealth takes a key person in this investigation and hides other things that have happened in his past. We see issues with this person in college. Those issues are swept under the rug because his father wrote a large check to make these things go away and to silence those that were affected. We see issues with the mayor, the chief of police, and other law enforcement officials resigning after this has happened and resigning after other things that have disgraced their position. We see a political system in the town wrought with issues, mayors that have been arrested through the past. We've even uncovered another death in the same town that's eerily similar and has some of the same characteristics of the cover-ups that were handled in this case. You'll see that the Kentucky State Police has done everything they could to make sure that this little town didn't cover this crime up, that they've pushed and pushed, and with the state's attorney, have made sure that the cover-up that began was not allowed to be completed and made sure that this crime will eventually be solved. First and foremost in this case, every person is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This case, while heavily researched, we have kind of hit a brick wall on some information. Obviously, the police department are not going to release any case files or any information from an active investigation. We've reached out to most of the people in the house that night and have been told they have no comment or have been completely ignored. The majority of our information comes from family, friends, and local newspaper and television. This week on the Broken System podcast, we want to learn more about Amber. We want to learn about who she was and what she stood for. We are joined by Debbie Hall, who is Amber's second cousin and probably one of the most vocal persons in searching for justice for Amber. Debbie, please introduce yourself.
Debbie Hall, and I'm a family practice physician here in my hometown, and I am second cousins with Amber, but I have known her since she came into the world, and she lived 2 doors down from me for the last 17, 18 years. She was raised by her grandmother and her grandfather. Her grandmother and my mom were sisters and best friends. So we spent every holiday, every birthday, every vacation, every Sunday dinner, a tight family. So we were very close. I feel more like she was my little sister or my daughter, actually, more so than just a second cousin.
How old was Amber?
She was 38 when she passed away, when she was murdered.
And tell me about Amber as a person. Who was she? When you think of her now, what do you think of? What are the things that come to you? And tell me about her.
Amber had a troubled life, and she always had difficulty fitting in. She was born, and her mom passed away when Amber was about 3 years old, and her dad kept her, and there was some problems there. So her grandparents took custody of her and raised her from the time she was about 3 or 4 years old. And she had difficulty in school. She was from one school to another. She would have these little temper outbursts, and she just had difficulty fitting in with people and getting along with people. She always wanted to fit in. But if things weren't going her way, she wasn't violent or mean or anything. She'd cry and stomp around a little bit and go to her room and stay. So she had a really difficult time. And her grandparents were very good to her. They had financial means to provide good for her. They took her. She was a world traveler. She'd been to, I think, a Mediterranean cruise, and she'd been to Italy and Paris and London and Germany and Hawaii. In a lot of ways, she had a really great life, things that a lot of people never get to have. And then in a lot of ways, it was really a sad kind of life too. Her mom died when Amber was about 3 or 4 years old. Her mom, Sharon, was 33 years old when she died. Amber's sister died at age 26 from a car wreck. And I think Amber was probably about 10 or 12 years old then, I guess. And Amber, as she lived with her grandparents, and as they got older, they had a lot of health problems and health issues. And she looked after them and took care of them. And she did all the grocery shopping. And then as her grandmother got more ill, Amber would do all the cooking for her too, and made sure that they had their medicine and helped them get to appointments and do things like that. So she really took good care of them. And as she got older, she grew out of the problems with the little temper tantrums and getting so bent out of shape so easily. So she overcame that and was doing much better. And she just struggled to fit in. And she would have difficulty reading cues from other people. I've been with her before, and I would see people come up and be rude or make fun of her to her face. But she had no idea that they were doing anything like that. She would just look at them and just smile and shake her head. She had no idea. She couldn't read social cues like that. She did go to the National College of Business, and she graduated from there, but she was never able to hold down a job because she had a lot of anxiety issues. And from the time that her mother died, she was under psychiatric care for depression and anxiety. And she would get really nervous and her hands would just tremble. And she had difficulty, I think, with numbers. So I think it's my opinion, I think she had a mild case of Asperger's syndrome because things had to be real regimented. She had to follow a schedule. If things got off schedule, she got a little bit bent out of shape about it. But she grew up, she matured, she overcame a lot of that stuff. And she was just getting out in the world and making friends and coming into her own whenever all of this happened to her.
So she went to work coming out. So she moved out. Her grandparents passed away, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So she was basically on her own for the first time
Yes. Yes.
in her life, not having the responsibility of taking care of somebody other than herself for the first time in her life.
Yeah.
I can imagine that was probably a hard transition for her in itself from you were talking about that regimented lifestyle of, okay, I know they've got to be here to do this, they're going to do this, to now not having any responsibility. Now I have to take care of myself. So it's a whole different process, a new style of figuring things out. So I can imagine that was probably tough on her anxiety as it was. And then going and getting a job, that's a big thing for her.
Yeah. Yeah. She worked like 4-hour shifts and she would do about 3 of them a week. Her grandparents left her with a trust fund, so she had money to live on and she didn't have to work, but she wanted to be out in the public. And I always tried to get her to go and file for her disability because other than her anxiety and her depression, she had asthma, she had high blood pressure, she was overweight, she was obese, she had an ACL reconstruction and meniscus repair on one of her knees. She walked with a limp. She had a hard time getting around. She got out of breath real easy. And I tried to get her to file for a disability. Her grandparents tried to get her to, and she wouldn't do it because she wanted to work. She wanted to be out there doing things. And I would get her out. Me and her would go out and do things at least once a week. We'd go out and have dinner together and we'd meet people and people would sit down and say, "What do you do?" Small talk. And she'd always say, "I don't do anything." And I said, "Amber, that's not true. You're a caregiver. You take care of your grandparents." And once I told her that, she just a big smile on her face. And from then on, when we go out to places and people would start talking to us and ask her what she did, then she started telling them, "I'm a caregiver. I take care of my grandparents," because that was a job.
Yeah, I can imagine. She didn't even realize that she was working a full-time, if not more than full-time job doing
Right.
that kind of stuff. Because it was just part of her routine, she just thought that's how her life was. That's a big thing that she learned, that she did have a job, that she did have a purpose, and I think that's important.
And for example, her grandparents, they had dementia, and before they passed, it was getting fairly advanced. They still knew everybody, but I'd call her and say, "Amber, let's go out and eat tonight." She'd say, "I can't. I got to take care of Mama and Papa. I got to feed them." I'd say, "Amber, they got dementia. Tell them you already fed them." She'd say, "Debbie, I can't do that." I'm just kidding, Amber.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But it goes back to those social cues. She didn't realize. She probably didn't think you were joking. She probably thought you were serious with it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what was she passionate about? What kind of things did she just love to do?
She had 2 cats, and she took care of them all the time. She loved her cats. She loved to cook. She loved to go out and eat. She and I would always discuss our meals that we'd had other places or things that we'd cooked. She liked to go to concerts. She went to a lot of concerts. She liked wrestling. She'd take her little cousins to wrestling all the time. She liked traveling, and she liked getting together. She and I, we'd always plan Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner. We'd plan birthdays, and when we had all the family together, we'd do Sunday dinner at my house every single Sunday. There'd be a dozen people here to eat, and she was always right here with me, helping me cook and helping me clean up, and she just enjoyed getting together with people like that. She had just started making friends and getting out and doing things. She went to bingo a lot. She enjoyed doing that. And she and I, in the summers, we would do garden food. We'd get beans and fix beans up for the winter, and we'd do pickled corn together. So I could count on her for anything.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It sounds like you guys were close, and she's lucky to have had you in her life.
I was lucky to have her too, because people don't have too many folks in their life that would do anything for them, drop anything and do anything for them, but she would for me.
That's amazing. And you're right. And as we get older and it gets harder to find those people in your life that would just drop things for you and do that. I'm glad.
I told her too, I said, you're my personal assistant, because if I was gonna, be doing a dinner, but I wasn't gonna get to go to the grocery, I'd make a grocery list and she'd go do it for me. And I'd always pay her for the little things that she would do for me. So she'd make a little bit of money to have to run around on. But yeah, I told her she was my personal assistant.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you're having to go through this, and that the uncertainty of everything surrounding everything is still there, because I know that's hard. I know that's a big part of closure, and you can't get that closure until you get this out of the way.
Yeah, I'm so mad. It's hard to grieve when you're so angry.
Yes, and I've seen it, and I've seen, and I know it's a big part of your life right now, of making sure that you do get the closure, and that Amber gets the closure. And you just have to be careful not to let it overtake your life to the point of that it wears you down, that you're fighting so hard. You have to remember to take care of yourself during all of this as well. I know that it's not easy, and I know that's not the first thing on your mind, but you got to remember to take care of yourself in this, because you're not going to, if you wear yourself down and beat yourself down too much, you're not going to be doing any good for her. So you have to make sure you're taking care of yourself.
I'm trying.
So we'll shift a little bit. So she went to work. So she got her job, and you said 3 to 4 days a week. She was working 3 to 4 hours a day. And I'm assuming she enjoyed it. She liked being there.
She loved it, and she thrived. I stopped in there one day to pick up an order, and she was just bouncing around and talking to everybody. And she's, your order's on the back bar there. I'll yell at the bartender, I've got to go seat these people. And then other people from the community who went in there, they thought she was something else. We always said, even before she got that job, that she needed to be like a tour guide or a tour director, because she was good at telling people, planning things and telling them where to go and what to do.
A hostess with the mostest.
Yes. Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
A funny story about her job. Sometimes they would ask her if she would stay over and work longer, and she would call. We all were close and would keep up with each other, let each other know where we're at and what we're doing. And she'd call her Aunt Missy and say, I've got to work a double tonight. So the 3 or 4 hours would turn into 6 or 8, but she was working a
Right.
double shift.
That's awesome. That's important, and I'm glad she was able to overcome that anxiety and get out into a social environment because it had to help her thrive. It had to help her give her a sense of purpose, especially with the loss of the grandparents and not having that sense of purpose. Going back to when people ask what she did, she was a caregiver. So I know that was probably hard on her, not just the loss of the grandparents, but then that loss of self of, okay, what do I do for myself now?
Yeah.
So that's great that she was able to find that purpose and get into a social environment, because a lot of people would have pulled into themselves and shut down. So
Mhm.
it's good that she was able to do that.
And with all the adversity that she faced, I never saw her feeling sorry for herself, sitting around feeling sorry for herself. And even when something would happen, she had about 2 boyfriends that I
Mhm.
know of in her whole life. And the last one, when they broke up, I said, Amber, I know you've got to be hurt. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'll be okay. And I'd say, but you can talk to me about, no, I'm fine. I'll be okay. It's all my fault. I know it is. I've got to do better. And she just never sat around, why me? Why did they do me this way? Or why is my life like this? She never did.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
And that takes a, because even people that don't have that social awkwardness take that stuff to heart, and
Yeah.
so it's great that she was able to do that.
Yeah. She was very resilient and determined.
She'd went through a lot just in I say a little bit of time.
Hmm.
I'm dating myself my age, but in her life, she had went through a lot and overcame a lot. That's why this case pulls on me because of that, because she had went through so much. To have something like this happen is it just
Hmm.
it hurts my heart to hear it and to know what you guys are going through.
Hmm. Yeah, I was so worried about her when her grandparents died because she was so close to them. And she actually, they had a a large house, and she moved out. She bought my mom and dad's house and moved into my mom and dad's house. And she was really doing good. She was really enjoying herself. And I thought when she moves, I thought I'll never see her anymore because she was just 2 doors down from me. But she would come over a night or two a week and eat dinner with us. And like I said, we'd go out and eat. And she was doing good. And it made me happy that she was doing so well.
Yep.
And I don't know, a few weeks before she passed away, she was over here and she was on her way out the door. And I don't know why, but I just felt the need to tell her that she didn't need to put up with anybody mistreating her or being mean to her or bad to her. And that if anybody did, for her to let me know and I would take care of them. And if I couldn't take care of them, that Brandon would take care of them. And so that's what we're doing. We're not going to let these people be mean to her. We're going to take care of it.
And that's so important. I mean, that your love for her, it shows. So it's very important with everything you do, with everything that you've done, and the fight that you've put up for her shows a lot. So I know she's looking down on you and she appreciates you. So that's for sure.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for joining us, and we appreciate it very much. Debbie will be back with us in future episodes. We've had a long conversation with her, so those will be throughout just as we get into the different topics and different subjects. Our next episode will dive into the 911 calls, both of them, and talk more about what the political system and what changes were made in the 911 system that caused some of the problems with Amber's case and other cases in the area. We're headed to the True Crime and Paranormal Festival in Denver. We can't wait to see everyone that's going to be able to attend and all the other creators that'll be there. That's July 12th through the 14th in Denver, Colorado at the Denver Marriott Westminster. We look forward to seeing you if you can attend. If not, I know there's some online activities where you can join and see some of the panels and events that are going on. Thank you all so very much for listening. I appreciate you more than you know. I appreciate the time that you take to listen to my voice and to listen to my podcast. And It's very much appreciated. I don't know how to tell you how much I appreciate you guys listening and helping me get Amber's story out there. Thank you. This podcast episode was researched, written, and edited by me, Robert Parmer. Additional research done by Bree Grubbs. A shout out to Jessica with Just the Facts True Crime Research for helping and assisting with the FOIA request. Music and sound effects from Epidemic Sound. This week's outro song is It's Not Easy to Start Over by Walking Hearts featuring Christine Smith. And clips and research from Mountain News WYMT. Thank you for tuning into the Broken System podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you like what we're doing and want to support the show, consider joining our Patreon community. It's located at www.patreon.com/The Broken System Podcast. Your support helps us keep the podcast going and brings you exclusive content and perks. Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated with the latest news, episodes, and behind-the-scenes content. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or if you're calling it X, and Instagram at The Broken System Podcast. Remember, at The Broken System Podcast, we're fixing the world one conversation at a time. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more insightful discussions in the next episode. Until then, stay curious and keep questioning.
Oh, you don't need to let your body go. Hungry heart, it's not easy to start over. I've been there a couple of times, starting over. Know that when the night comes over you, rushes into you will shed that skin. Oh, it feels like a long run uphill. Just stay still. Take the smallest breaths, the shortest steps. It's enough. Take it easy and let your feelings out. Don't push them aside. Don't hide. Know that when the night comes over you, rushes into you will shed that skin. Oh, it feels like a long run uphill. Just stay still. Nothing really matters but you. Nothing is really true but you. Know that when the night comes over you, rushes into you will shed that skin.